So that was all that part that we talked about is for variables, constants, and I talked about the let and the difference in a let and variable with as well. So starting out, our next section is going to be talking about numbers in here. So if you could for me, if you can come over here and just click on this new file, a little new file. I want you to create another file. Call this thing Celsius, like the degree Celsius is what we will actually use with it. So Celsius is kind of like a conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius. It's a simple Celsius file with it and JS with it as well. So with the file extension, it's JS with it. So this is what it looks like, a plain wafer page with it. And I'm going to create some variables in this from this point on. I'm going to use var and I'm going to use score is equal to, let's say, 100, right? I'm going to start add in a semicolon because I'm just used to coding with in C++ with it as well in Java with it. So if I did something like score, if I want to reassign score as a variable, I can always go back in and do something with a different number. This is how I reassign a value with it and variables with it as well. So something very simple that you've done in the past with it, and then you would actually run the score up to this time with it. Let's add another one. Let's say constant. I talked to you about it's a constant, and there's a bonus with it, and you can give it about 50 points in this thing as well. So anything like this is always good to see. And if we can always do a variable call, let's say final score. Again, when you first learn to code, hard coding is what we're doing right now with it. It is acceptable to hard code a lot of the stuff right now. That's what you have with it. That's okay. I mean, you can hard code, but hard coding is what we're doing, putting the actual value into the variable at this time. So, when we only want to see what this thing looks like, when you first learn, you got to see what's inside the memory, and you're going to see, in this case, is final score. As my IntelliSense picks it up really good with it, and I'm going to do a semicolon with it as well. Like I said, the first couple of videos I kind of left out the semicolon, kind of did not use the var, kind of break you into this. But a semicolon goes a long ways because it tells a command and statement where it ends. So I'm trying to have best practice for you on industry with it, so you get used to industry coding, and if you do it right now, you'll be okay with it as well. So try some of this. You're going to save this, and I'm gonna go back in here. I'm in the basic directory, so I need to do node, and the new file that I'm calling now is Celsius.js, and I'm gonna hit enter, and it gives me, in this case right now, let me do a clear that up with it and kind of show you as 120. How do I get 120? If you look at score here, is 130 plus the 50, and this is where the final score comes in. This is where we get 180 out of this thing with it as well. So kind of, you can see how this comes into play, and you can also go into this thing and kind of, what if I did, if you remember in programming, it has a lot to do with math. Your math set of skills is, remember PIM-DAS, parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. What are all those? Order of precedence, how you do your math with it. So let's say you did something like this, and you were going to do some of the mathematical expression on this. And if you did this, let's say you did this 1.8, and I'll just take this and multiply it with 1.8 divided into 2 with this. So, and you go, oh my God, dang, you didn't make us do math in here. No, it goes the same way as what you would actually do is, remember now, this whole thing is multiplication takes precedence in this thing with it. All right, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally's how I learn it with it as well. If you want to write this in another way, you always should write this in parentheses with it. If you want the addition and the scores to be calculated first, you add the bonus if you want to do that. In this case, if that's what you want, then you do this first with it, and then you do parentheses. It looks like this. Okay. It looks like this, and then you divide it, which is a nested. All these are nested parentheses you can actually use to actually, if you want your calculations to look like this. So if I Control S, if I save this, and if I run this again, I get a different value because I asked it to multiply, and I asked it to add differently with it. So if you did it with this expression where I took the score is 100 plus bonus is what? is 50, which is whatever the value that is to it, and then I multiply that with 1.8, and then I divide to 2. That's how I get the 162 with it. So just to give you a sense where the mathematical operator comes into this is with it as well. So please remember your order of operation and everything that you do in here with it as well. So you know, it's still there with it. So but the key thing is, the worst thing you don't want to do is to write something like, I'll just, you know, complex. I'm going to declare this as a complex explanation with this. So let's say something like 4 plus 4 plus, and give it a long line of this 5 minus, or multiply that with 2, and then I would add this, and then I would actually divide this into 2. So this is very cumbersome to read. This is just poor coding with it. So if I want this to design to be a proper way of designing this, remember now, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. All right, dear, please excuse. Please stands for parentheses. Excuse is exponential. Dear is division. So if I want to do this, I should really do this first with it, right? So let me just tighten up on the code here with it. So this is the proper way of doing it, is divide that first, my dear aunt. Okay, so multiplication needs to happen first as well, right? So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please is the parentheses. Excuse is exponential. We don't have any exponential. My is multiplication. So this would take place first, right? And then this, all right? And then we're going to all add it with this expression right here. So I'm going to put this around this, and then I'm going to put this whole thing in a parentheses as well. All right. So if I looked at this, if I look at this expression, and I want to do an output for this thing, I'll just take the console right here, and then I want to put complex in here. All right. So I'm going to save it. Come up here. I want to run this, and I, you know, have output is the 20 that comes across here. Let's take a look if I did this right or not. So 5 times 2 is 10, right? 10, and then I add 8 to it is 18, right? 18 plus 4 divided into 2 is 2, so 18 plus 2 is actually 20. So the math technically comes out correct if I did this in the order of operation with it. This is a lot clearer programming. This is where you want to achieve, is this. All right? So that's the first point I want to point out with it. I'm going to run the code, let you take a look at it. The other thing I need to talk to you about is there's what's called Modulus with it. I'm going to leave that for you to research. If you remember Modulus is with it, Modulus is what? Modulus is basically, it's a remainder, right? So find is to find the remainder. Okay. So because our CPU and our hardware doesn't calculate remainders, so we have to find remainders with it as well. So I'm going to show you how to define remainders with it, and one of the codings with it as well. All right, so our program is, we're going to calculate a formula, and we're going to, let's say I'm going to go back to let for now with it, right? So I'm going to use temp in Fahrenheit, all right, with this. So let's say temp in Fahrenheit, let's say it's 32, right? And we want to convert this thing. We're going to create a program. So we actually assign a value to the temperature with this to calculate this right now with it. And the first step is we have a value in here, and we need to have a formula that we calculate the formula in this thing with it. And so I'm going to start with another one. I'm going to use, ultimately, is the Celsius degree with it, right? And I'm just going to abbreviate Cel. So I'm going to put in the temp in Fahrenheit, which is this, in here with it. And I pull this formula off of the Google website with it. So if you want to pull up Google website, you could actually um, pull into Google, and you type in Fahrenheit, um, convert to, here we go, Fahrenheit to Celsius, which is this right here. All right, and there's how, of course, you could do that here, or you could see what is the actual formula that you can actually use with it. So this is a wonderful way how you see, here's the formula right here with it. So they gave you C, and you plug in your Fahrenheit degree, you subtract that with 32, and then you multiply the whole thing, you divide the whole thing by 1.8, all right, which is equivalent to 5 divided into 9 with it. I think that's the same thing as what we're going to do with it as well. That's okay. But that's what's going to happen here. We're going to write this formula with it in here with it as well. Let's see if I can grab a formula in here with it as well. I think let's see what this one is. Yeah, right here. So this is the formula I like to use right here. So this formula right here. Okay. So this is the formula if you want to just copy that, minimize this, and I'm gonna come over here with it, and we can paste that formula right here. Okay. So this is I'm gonna call this thing, we haven't declared yet with it, but I'm gonna call this thing Celsius. All right. And this part right here is the Fahrenheit that we have. So I'm gonna paste that right here. Okay, so that actually gives us a Fahrenheit temperature in this with it as well. Let me do a semicolon on that and in that with it. So, and of course we need to do what? Console. You need to see what's inside of this, and I'm going to output this cell is the variable on this thing. So, what does 32 in Fahrenheit temperature and Fahrenheit convert to Celsius right now with it? Control S. I'm going to open up this, run my node Celsius.js, and whoa, it goes, whoa, wait a minute, Dan, I don't understand what you're talking about here. So let's see what we got here. So I made a terrible mistake here. I copy and paste that formula in here, and if you look very carefully, it doesn't know what cross meaning multiplication. A multiplication in code needs to be an asterisk, right? Asterisk, not an X sign or a code sign with it. So let me save this, Control S, saves this, and I'm going to come down here, let me just clear this, and then I want to run that code again with it, and then there it is. So 32 in Celsius is actually 0 degrees, and 32 in Fahrenheit in Celsius is 30 degrees. So you go in, you can maybe change that a little bit with it. What if it's 95 or let's do a little warmer here, 45. All right, 45 degrees in Fahrenheit with it. What is it in Celsius? So we can convert that over. So it's about 7 degrees Celsius with it as well. All right, a little less than that. You can always check there. Remember that table I was telling you about? If you scroll down here, this just to make sure the math is right with it. So 0 degree, 32 is 0. And I said, what if we did, I don't know, 100 or 90? What's typical Texas weather? Here we got about 98.6, right? Or 90 degrees. Let's do 90 degrees. As during the summer, it gets pretty hot out here. If I plug in 90 degrees for Fahrenheit, I should get 32.22 for Celsius, right? So let's say I did 90. Make sure my math is right here. And save this. Control S saves this. And I come over here. I do run that again with it. So I should get is 32.22. Does that match with what my formula 32.22 with pretty good precision with it as well? So if you look at that page, 32, 90 degrees right here. So it matches with what the output of the Fahrenheit to Celsius with it. So I kind of give you a sense on what we're doing on the order of operation on this. and you could change it to just to see where you stand on this right now. So just to run the code and be consistent to what we talked about and some of the stuff with it as well. Okay, very well. So let me stop right here